Imperfectionism, or perfect is the enemy of progress. That is going to be the topic of this episode of Chi Life. All right, so I'll get this out of the way first. I don't always say where I am for these different vlogs, but I am in Paris, France, and in an area that is probably not the part of Paris that people think of, typically. If you're a tourist in Paris and experiencing Paris, I'm in this area, which is La Défense, and there's all these big modern buildings. So I think to people from Paris, I think, yeah, of course, this is Paris, but maybe not so much to those of us who don't really spend much time here. All right, so this vlog, it's probably going to be another one of those pretty long, rambly ones, maybe one for the true Chi Life channel fans. I'm going to talk a little bit generally about that topic of imperfectionism, or perfection being the enemy of progress. And then I'll talk a bit about what's been going on for me over the last little while, and actually over the next little while as well, and how that ties in with this topic. And then finally, right at the end, I will talk about how this applies specifically to Qigong in general and Qigong practice. So if you want to skip through, if you don't want to watch the whole thing, if you're looking, I'm expecting it to be quite long, and you're looking at the length of this video and you're like, oh my goodness, I don't think I want to watch all of that. Fair enough. The true fans might. I might talk about some interesting things. Some people might quite like to know some of the things I talk about. But you can also, we generally always put time codes in for these videos. So you can kind of either in the description below, you can see the time codes and go like, ooh, I want to go to that bit. And, that's the part I want to listen about, like particularly maybe if you're interested in specifically how it applies to Qigong practice, you might skip ahead to that. Or also just at the bottom, I don't know if it does it on a phone, but certainly on a computer, at the bottom of the, if you have your mouse over the video, it brings up, like it shows you where a new section begins, talking about different topics. So yeah, thank you to Tihana. She's the one who does all those time codes and things like that, decides, where a new topic starts and stops. And look, I know in these vlogs, a lot of what I talk about is directly related to Qigong. Sometimes I get off onto talking about other things, some things about just what's going on with Long White Cloud Qigong in my personal life. Now, clearly I'm an expert on that because I'm experiencing it. And then I also talk more generally, broadly about, life in general and philosophy and, how that ties together. And for that, it's like, well, you can judge for yourself how well qualified or experienced I am to talk about those sorts of things. I guess that's all subjective. And maybe for a lot of those things, I don't want to come across as like, yes, I know all of the solutions to life, because I certainly don't. So yeah, in terms of the parts that you should really probably pay attention to in these different vlogs, well, when I'm talking directly about Qigong and Qigong practices, that's where I have a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge. Those are worth listening, paying attention to. Other things, maybe you'd find something interesting, useful out of it, maybe not. And that's fine, just chatting about different things that people might find possibly interesting or useful. All right, so just before I get into the topic a bit more, don't know how well we're going to see it. I think I might have shown you this before. I'm going to try not to spin around too much to make people dizzy. But this is Le Grand Arch. Interesting looking building. Okay, back to our topic. Imperfectionism, or perfection, being the enemy of progress. I think this is an interesting topic because I think it's relevant to a lot of us. And I've had some influences around this topic in my life that I think have been really good, positive influences. And then I've had some influence in my life around this topic that have been really unhelpful influences as well. I guess broadly speaking, I'll start with the perfection being the enemy of progress part. It's really easy to think that we need to wait for things to be perfect before we can move ahead with a plan or a decision or whatever it may be. And I personally know so many people who have great ideas, great plans, and in the end they don't do anything with them because they're constantly like, oh yeah, things aren't right either in their external environment, things around them, their personal circumstances, okay, they're not right for them to do it yet. Or even in terms of maybe they've been working on whatever it is, lots of different things this could be, personal project of some sort, and they're like, still not good enough yet, still not good enough yet. And so they never end up doing anything. And there's so many things in life where like we can work at it in theory, we can, or we can study it in theory, we can even work at it, like actively work at it, but in like a isolated way, like a sort of sandbox way. We're sort of working at it by ourselves and not showing other people or not interacting with the rest of the world around that thing. And we think we're like making progress, and we think we know what's important with that, and but in the end, and look, and we can make progress that way. There's a certain amount we can learn that way, but in the end, with so many things, a lot of the real learning begins when you actually put it into practice, when you actually try and do it out in the real world with real people and real challenges, and then you find out that so many of the things that you thought were an issue aren't an issue. So many issues that you had no idea, could be a problem. And that's when you really start to learn, by actually going out there, doing the thing. And then little by little, that's where you can make progress. So if sometimes a lot by lot, it doesn't even have to be a little by little. But if we keep waiting for perfection or trying for perfection, we don't make much progress. Our progress is capped. Some interesting examples of this yesterday, actually, because I was in Paris already yesterday, and one of the things I did was I spent a little bit of time in the Louvre, and that was really interesting because I'd never been in the Louvre before. I had been outside the Louvre once on a previous visit here, but this time I went inside with a friend and we had a bit of a look around, and one of the main areas that we spent time in was some of the classical antiquities, mainly sculptures, some other things as well, some pottery and jewelry, but mainly looking at those sculptures. And this was particularly interesting for me because I have spent a good chunk of my life at one point sculpting. I did a lot of sculpture. A lot of people watching the channel may not know that, although I've probably made some reference to it at some point before. And so that was interesting for me to look at these classical sculptures and identify, I see some things that I really liked, and then see some things I didn't like so much, but also just looking at the quality of the workmanship and different details, and how, some of these sculptures by what are considered to be great masters, oh boy, they have a lot of imperfections in them. And yet they are considered to be the great masters. Maybe there's a lesson there. If that great master had been, figuratively speaking, sitting at home in their bedroom, probably not their bedroom, in a workshop maybe, and chipping away, making their sculptures and not showing anyone else, and then going like, oh, I can't show anyone until I get it perfect. As we probably never would have benefited from all of the interesting pieces of art that they created over a career, because none of them in the end will have been perfect. Over time, probably less and less imperfections. But certainly, if they had awaited for perfection, they would have got stuck probably just on their first piece. Never produced another and another and another, and refined and developed and expressed different things. I've had some really good examples of this in my life. And so one good friend of mine is a film producer, or amongst other things. He does lots of other things as well. And we've had conversations, and I've also seen him talk to other people as well, where, because what he's done with his filmmaking, and I'm not saying this is the answer for everyone, but he wanted to make a film, so he went and did it. Now, he did some things first to prepare himself. He entered some short filmmaking competitions. He made some music videos. He talked to lots of people, so he got started. But then he was like, you know what? I want to make a feature film. And he went and did it. So I should mention his name. His name's Christian Nicholson. And the movie is This Paper Mache Boulder is Actually Really Heavy. That was his first feature film. Quite entertaining, if you're interested in that sort of thing. But, well, very silly. I'm in it quite a few times, actually. If you want to hunt that down, you can see if you can spot me. It may not be so easy to spot me in it, but I'm there. I'm there quite a lot. And that probably gives you a bit of a clue as to where you might find me in that film, the fact that it's hard to spot me. Anyway, so he went and did it. He self-funded it. He just paid for it all through his other work, and he recruited different people and did things on a very, very low budget. He went out and did it. And moving in filmmaking circles, there's so many people, and they've got this idea for a movie, or they want to do that, and it just remains an idea. They don't get on and do it. And the fact of the matter is that when you do get on and do it, whatever you're going to produce is probably not going to be perfect. But you learn lessons, you make contacts, and it doesn't always, but can lead on to the next thing, and you can develop from there. So those are just a couple of areas, and there's many others. And again, at the end of the vlog, I'm going to get to specifically how this applies to Qigong practice. It'll probably be pretty clear by then, but anyway, I'll make it really directly. How does this apply to your Qigong practice? So for myself in my life, I guess in general terms, because there's different reasons why people can get caught up in perfectionism. And I think, there was a good portion of my life when I was younger that I had a really healthy attitude to this, where I had an awareness of good enough is good enough. And so that was my approach to a lot of things. It didn't mean I wasn't trying, or it didn't even mean I wasn't trying my hardest at different things. I definitely was. But I also had this awareness, this understanding, if it's good enough, it's good enough. Just carry on, do it. And I think that was really healthy. And then I think, as with many people, there's things that can kind of lead us towards perfectionism. And for some people, it can just be an internal pressure that they put on themselves. I think for many people, it can come from external pressures or circumstances. And those pressures, they can come from individuals, maybe within family or friends, just someone who influences you and puts that pressure there. It can come from institutions or organizations, and it can just come from circumstances in life, where I think often where there are some challenging things to deal with, or things where it is hard to, things that are difficult. And there can become the sense that it's like, man, you have to get things just right, or the consequences will be dire. And I certainly experienced that across a few different ways, and that for a period of time really changed my attitude around perfectionism. And there were some strong pressures, and some of them it was probably accurate. It's like, no, I really did have to get things just right or the consequences would have been dire. Others it was more like, no, actually that's not right. I could have gone through some of those things in my life a lot more gently, with a better perspective, and without some of the pressures that were maybe put on me. And so then I went through a period of my life where, a lot of internal pressure, again, closely connected with external pressures, to some type of perfectionism. And that was a very difficult period of my life. And I did at some point become aware that this probably wasn't the healthiest attitude to have. And so I've worked on that, of course, as hopefully you do. When you recognize there's something that's not healthy, you try to go, okay, maybe I can find a healthier way to live my life, to engage with life. But those tendencies can still be there, and it can take quite a bit to sort of shift through these and come to that healthy balance. Because not seeking perfection, again, it doesn't mean not trying. And that's where, so this term that I used in the title for this video as well, imperfectionism. I actually just heard that this morning. It was in a vlog that I was watching, and not so much watching. I'll often put, not a vlog, more of a podcast, and I'll often put something on playing while I'm working at different things. And this one was a guy, and he was talking about imperfectionism, and again, the idea of this is not about not trying to do things really well, not even trying to do your best, but about recognizing our limitations as limited mortal beings, and embracing that, and recognizing that there's multiple paths that we can follow through life, and that by doing this we can achieve more, enjoy more, and so on. And so I like that as a concept, and as like a little phrase to kind of sum that up, that, maybe some of us could find useful to embrace. So I hope it might be useful for some of you watching this vlog, this idea of imperfectionism. That idea is actually connected to some of the symbolism in the Long White Cloud Qigong logo. Now, another example of imperfectness, because I do have some t-shirts that have the logo on it, but I'm not wearing one of those today. It's funny, often, when I need to talk something about yin and yang and so on, it's like, and I won't have a yin and yang logo or diagram, a Tai Chi 2 available, and I have one of those today. And now I'm talking about imperfection, and maybe some symbolism around that, and I don't have one available. I'm not wearing the right t-shirt, but that's okay. I can talk about it well enough. So if you want to look up the Long White Cloud Qigong logo, we might put a link actually to something about that in the description below. That way you can find it easily. Basically, so Long White Cloud Qigong, it is a logo of a cloud, but that cloud is made up of 3 imperfect circles. So specifically, it's a type of imperfect circle that is drawn often in Zen calligraphy. And so it's drawn in a single brush stroke, and it's most often drawn with a small gap in the circle, in the edge of the circle. And the idea is that there is, like if you draw a perfect circle with a machine, not that there's anything wrong with that necessarily, but it's kind of a bit boring. It's a bit lacking in, in character. Whereas you draw these imperfect circles, they're generally drawn with a brush, and so it brings all that character of the brush stroke in it, and they're not actually perfect. Those imperfections actually create more beauty, within that circle. And there's other aspects to the symbol as well, which I won't go into here. I think probably whatever we link to might talk about more of that. And so this cloud is made up of 3 of these Zen calligraphy circles, 3 of these, Enso is the name for them, joined together. And the idea of that being that Long White Cloud Qigong, there's some other symbolism in Long White Cloud Qigong to do with the cloud, which again I won't go into right now. But in terms of those Ensos coming together, the idea that Long White Cloud Qigong forms a community of people doing Qigong practices, each of us perfectly imperfect, and that we come together in imperfect ways, but together it creates this community of this fresh and beautiful energy that we get from Qigong. And so, yeah, it's a symbolism that I've enjoyed for quite some time. It's a symbolism that I've also brought into some of my sculpture work, that when I did tying topics together, when I did a lot of sculpture back before, in a variety of ways within my sculpture work as well. Okay, so where am I going with this topic? So imperfectionism, embracing the imperfect, recognizing it's part of life, and that in a way it can actually make life more beautiful when we bring the right perspective to it. I think it's very easy, just one simple example of how this can work. It's very easy to come up with our perfect plans of what it is we want to do, and then inevitably things don't work out quite the way that we hoped. Travel's a good example of this. Get lots of things, we want to have it perfectly lined up, and then inevitably something will happen, delays and things like that, and you just have to deal with it when it happens. But if we look at it in the wrong way, or wrong, again, wrong's maybe too strong a word, but in a way that's potentially unhealthy, when those disruptions and things happen, we can easily catastrophize and go, oh no, everything's ruined. Whereas if we look at it another way, sometimes it'll cause problems, no question about it. It's not like everything that happens is good. But we can also often within that, if we're not so focused on perfection, everything going exactly right, sometimes we can find some really good things in some of those disruptions, and sometimes they might even make things better. They might bring more interest. You might experience something new, go somewhere you hadn't planned to, meet someone who you didn't know you would meet, and so on. We can embrace those imperfections within our plans, within life, and truly appreciate the beauty and the experience of life more. Okay, so coming down to more what's been happening with me lately, sort of how does this apply? I've had a lot to do lately, a lot, and that's because I've had multiple priorities of things that I've been trying to achieve at the same time. And I almost made another vlog about this a while ago when I really was feeling overloaded with the different things that I was doing. And I was thinking I might make a vlog, like the title might just be something like doing too much. And there's some other lessons to come from that about like, okay, sometimes we do end up with too much to do, and sometimes the wise thing is to learn to not try to do so much at a time. But there's another side to this as well, and again, it's the imperfections of life, where it's like, you know what, sometimes it's just how it is. Even though it might be, ideal to not be trying to do so many things at the same time, maybe that's just not practical right now, and you do actually have to give attention to a whole lot of different things at one time. And I felt like that was the case with me and what I was doing, that it's like, okay, for a period of time there's just too much to do and I just have to do my best, and I will come out the other side of that and be able to reduce my focus down a little bit, to make things a bit calmer, a bit gentler for myself. But again, this has come from having multiple priorities, multiple things at the same time. And so one of these has been, and I'll talk more about this a little bit later as well, as some of you, if you've been watching the vlog for a while, one of the things that I'm trying to do as I'm traveling at the moment is I'm looking for somewhere to base myself. Not in New Zealand. I'm looking around at options, at possibilities of where it might work for me to be based in the world. In addition to that, I am still running the online courses for Long White Cloud Qigong, and of course that's important, that's a priority, to be able to, one, keep the business running, the business end of it, and two, to be able to serve those students well and help them along as they're learning about Qigong. So that's another important priority. And then as another priority, I've also, I just realized I don't have a wind cover on this microphone, so I might pause for a moment, another imperfection, and see if I can sort that out. All right, got a wind cover on now, this little fluffy thing, so that should reduce any noise from the little breeze that's picking up. So another priority has been to run some retreats and also some workshops while I've been traveling around, and for a few reasons. A big one simply being to reconnect with some people in different parts of the world. Again, if you've been watching the vlog for a while, you'll know that, well, prior to the pandemic, I used to travel quite a lot. Each year I'd go and I'd visit different places and I'd teach workshops. But then I got stuck in New Zealand for several years, and it had been quite a while. And I think there's real value in connecting with people in person. So I had, in the past, just connecting with people who'd done the online workshops before, spending some time making those connections. And also just in terms of teaching as a whole, the online teaching plays a really good role. It really is a very effective way to teach and for people to learn in a really structured way. Particularly if things are structured well, which I get a lot of feedback from course participants saying how well they are structured. And so it's a really good way to learn. And it's so convenient, people can practice in their own time, in their own space, and it works really well. It also means it can reach people all over the world. But there's another side of that. There is also something that comes from being together in person. So that's also valuable. And I really want to get back into doing more of that teaching in person. Some of you may know, again, at the start of the pandemic, I was actually in the process of shutting down all my online teaching. It's not that I wasn't going to teach online again in the future, but I had online courses and things available for quite a while at that point, and it was time to upgrade them, to reformat them, to make them better. And so what I was planning to do was actually just stop teaching online for a period of time, again, not forever, and just teach in person, just doing workshops, running retreats, running intensive trainings in person. And of course, the pandemic ended all that for a while. And I really want to get back into doing more of that. Again, not that the online is going to go away. I think it's a really valuable tool for lots of people. So I'm not planning to stop that this time. The plan before was to stop it for a while and then gradually rebuild in a considered way. Instead, I had to rebuild very quickly. I wanted to make a start on that move back to doing more in-person teaching, to start to make this available to people. And so juggling that with my other priorities between just looking for where I might want to be based, keeping running the online courses, and then also trying to fit in teaching of workshops and running some retreats and so on, and all of the planning around that, while also just dealing with travel logistics, going from place to place and communicating with different people and trying to get dates lined up, and it became a lot. I was quite overloaded there for a while, and I'm kind of coming out the end of that now. I have another busy period ahead of me. with some more teaching and things like that, which I'm looking forward to. Not so much to organise logistic-wise for that, so that's great. But yeah, it's been a super busy time, and as part of that, it has meant lots of imperfections. Things like not being able to reply to emails as quickly as I'd like, or sometimes maybe not replying to them at all. Sorry for anyone who that might be the case for you. And things like that, and just being able to go, well, you know what? I'm just going to do the best that I can right now, and that just has to be, good enough. It's funny, sometimes people get an idea, they say, oh, I've been to all these countries and, all that sort of thing as I'm traveling around. And I think there's a few people who get this idea. It's like I'm on one grand holiday. And that's really not it at all. Now, that's not to say I don't enjoy being in different places. I do. It's interesting seeing different places and, meeting with different people and things like that. But, even, for example, today, yesterday, I was up at 5 a.m. to take care of some things, get on top of some stuff, some of which was quite urgent, so that I could go out and meet a friend for lunch. And then that same friend went into the Louvre, as I mentioned earlier, and that was very nice. And then I came home in the evening and had some more work to do. So I was like, oh, yeah, not exactly your normal holiday setting. And then today I was, I started about 8 a.m. and managed to get out of the Airbnb at like 3 p.m. And I was like, man, I'm here. I'm in Paris, this amazing city. I should at least get out and see a few things. And because there have been places as I've traveled around, and maybe I've spent a week in a city here and a city there, some of those cities I've barely left my room because I've had so much work to do. But I always make sure to get out at least a little bit. And it's like, here I am, I'm only in Paris for, 3 days really in total, 2 full days, and travel time either side of the other days. And it's like, man, I will make sure to at least experience and see a few things here, or, kind of what's the point? And I think that's something else in terms of embracing imperfectionism, is recognizing that even though we might have important things that we need to get done, to recognize that, hey, sometimes we just need to take that time to enjoy and experience some things, some other aspects of life as we carry on and do other things. It doesn't mean that we don't have to put a lot of time maybe into things that we're working on and that they might take a lot of priority, but at least take the time to enjoy, experience, and so on. There was a period of time, again, some years ago, because, hopefully I've got better at this little by little over time. Still not perfect. I still have a tendency towards overworking, basically. There's lots that I want to accomplish. There's lots that I want to share with people. And some challenging circumstances to deal with as well, frankly. And you put those things together, it's like I feel a real drive to work and get things done. But I do recognize it as something that, I need to scale back. I need to find balance with. And yeah, there was a period some time ago, where it's very easy if you have this tendency to just find times to be busy. And there was quite a substantial period of time for a number of years where I was literally so busy that, eventually one of the things that I did was I resigned from a position that I had in an organization which was serving the community. So it was a good thing that I was doing, and I served in that for quite some time, and I resigned from that. And one of the things that I said to, some of the people when I resigned and I was moving on was like, I'll have time to eat and sleep and basic things like that. And it was kind of joking, not joking. because I would often find myself so busy that I didn't have time to have regular meals and things like that. And so it was like, yeah, I'm actually going to, by dropping this one responsibility, find a little bit of time to take care of some of the basics for myself. Anyway, like I said, this is a pretty long, rambly one, but maybe interesting for a few people. I don't know, maybe from my follies and mistakes, there might be some reflection back where you go like, oh, make you think about some things in your life. Maybe it'll be useful to you as well. So, looking forward, as I said, I've got a pretty busy time coming up in the US. But after that is the end of the travel plans that I have at the moment so far. I had a very flexible travel plan, leaving New Zealand of some places I want to go to check things out, and then trying to fit in some teaching along the way, some workshops, some retreats, and I've managed to do that. Had some great workshops in, well, a little impromptu one in Vietnam, and then some in the UK and some in Ireland. Had a really cool retreat in Ireland, and then sort of, all of these things, and then it's like, okay, and then there's this conference in the US that I'm going to attend and present at, and that was where my plans have extended to. On the other side of those plans, well, I have options, and I have some potentially quite big decisions to make. One of the possibilities that I have is to possibly, from the US, go and spend some time in Central and South America. And, because it's close to the US, it makes sense to go from there. And I can see some real value in doing that, because spending time in different places, in terms of my objectives, it could be somewhere that possibly could suit for me to base myself. It's quite accessible to the US and Canada, where there's lots of Long White Cloud Qigong students and instructors, and potentially many more in the future, and so it'd be accessible to there, and time zones are similar, so that would make things easy for working with those people. But then, quite aside from that, even if it doesn't fit for me to actually base myself there, I think there's value just in experiencing different places. I find that by going to different places and just experiencing the energy of the land, of the place itself, of the people, that there's things that I learn. And some of that's intellectual and some of that's energy learning of a sort. There's good things that come from it. And so that's potentially something really worthwhile for me to do. But on the other side of that, I am really feeling some pressure of a sort to get on with some of the things I need to be doing for Long White Cloud Qigong. And that's a few things. Some of it is simply starting to plan for next year. While, as I've been traveling, I've fit in a few workshops and retreats and things. I would like to have all that sort of thing much better organized for next year. And for things like retreats, you really need to plan dates and venues well in advance to make things easier, because they book up and then it becomes difficult. And so, start for some of the planning of that. And then some other things that I'd really like to be working on. So a big one is the Qigong healing course, which I've made reference to quite a number of times in these vlogs. And that's something I really want to share with people. And there's lots of people who've been waiting for quite some time for me to get that ready. And early on in some of these travels this year, I was able to make some progress with that, but it was when I was somewhere for a relatively extended period of time, and I didn't have too many other additional commitments that I need to take care of. When I'm moving around faster and when I have lots of other things I'm trying to do, it's very difficult to make any progress. And so for that, I feel like I really need to be in one place so I can settle in and get some work done on it. Excuse me, looking down at some stairs. Another thing that I'd really like to do, and again, I haven't talked about it so much on this vlog, I don't think, but it is something that I talk to people about just as I'm traveling around, when I talk to people in person, because it's something that I've wanted to do for quite some time, haven't got around to doing because I've got so many other things going on, and I've only got so much time, so much energy, so much focus. And that is to teach some regular online classes. So just regular, so not an instructor course where it's in depth and really structured and all of those things, but something where it's just a regular class where you come, you enjoy the practices, we maybe focus on just one little thing at a time, and as a way to offer that to people who maybe don't want to go all the way into an instructor certification program, or even those who have done instructor certification programs, but it's nice to have that opportunity to practice together and to form those connections and community. It's something I've wanted to do dating back quite a few years, well before the pandemic. This was something that I wanted to do, and it just hasn't fitted for me to do that yet. And again, at least to begin with, to get that established, I think I really need to be in one place, have a good setup, have some of the other things finished, so I'm not putting too much time into that, so like have the Qigong healing course probably ready so that I can divert some attention and be able to move forward with that. And look, and I have other things that I want to do as well. Even this vlog is a good example of imperfection. You'll notice there's tons of imperfections in this vlog. Things from the sound not being great, to me being a bit long and rambly, to sometimes the camera hunting for focus in different shots while I'm doing things like that. There's a nice sculpture over here I'm going to go check out. And I have ideas about making this vlog better, about setting things up better, about maybe even doing more than just having a topic and just talking about it, but maybe even writing a script for different vlogs so that I can talk about them in a really concise way and get the lighting better and get the sound better. I have ideas about that, and I just can't put attention onto it when I've got all these other things going. So being in one place and based there isn't going to, automatically mean, hey, I'm going to get all these things done just like that. But it will be a start, and I'm really feeling I wouldn't say I feel pressure from other people to do this sort of thing, because I do have people who follow up and ask me about this regularly. They ask me about the Qigong healing course in particular. They ask me about, this is the sculpture I was checking out. They ask me about, can you teach some classes, so we can, but I wouldn't say that's pressure. That's, I guess, just little reminders and prods. I do feel some internal, it's like, I really want to get on with this. And I don't think I'm going to be able to do that while traveling around Central and South America. It's like, maybe I need to find somewhere to settle and be. But then at the same time, I've set out on this journey this year, wanting to look at different places. And my nature is, I like to be really thorough when I do something. And this is part of what I think makes me a good teacher, or at least people tell me I'm a good teacher. Some people maybe don't like my teaching, that's fine. But lots of people do. And that is because I do look at things thoroughly. And so I don't just have one angle on what I'm teaching. Before I start to teach something, I will have gone and researched and looked at everything I can to do with it. Now, will I know everything? No, of course not. That's not possible. But I will have really dug in and found different perspectives and to really get to the essence of it. And so then when people ask questions, it's like, I can help them with whatever their interest is around the topic that I know. If it's not, not related to what I'm teaching, maybe I can't. But, I can really help them to find the depth and find the things that will help them to understand it and really get the value from it, because I do like to be thorough. So I think that thoroughness is a good thing, but I can also take it to an extreme. and sometimes that's not always useful. And so it could be quite tempting for me. It is quite tempting for me to want to be like, well, I haven't checked out everywhere in the world, so how am I going to choose a place to settle and be based, if not permanently, at least for a while? And of course, there's no way I'm going to be able to check out every country. I'd be traveling for years and years before being able to move on with things. But even to go like, well, have I checked out every region? And I've checked out a few. I've been through Asia. I've certainly spent plenty of time in Australasia, so I understand that. I've been through, not everywhere in Europe, but a fair bit of Europe. I've spent plenty of time in the US and Canada in the past, not recently, but in the past. But I haven't really spent much time in Central or South America. Again, I think there could be some value there. And so it's tempting to be like, no, I really need to do this first before I make a choice of where to base myself. But I do need to choose, right? Do I keep on traveling, exploring, or do I get on with this work that I need to do, I feel I need to do for Long White Cloud Qigong and for the Qigong that I teach, share with other people? And I think back to the topic of imperfectionism. Well, this can help. It can help for me in this decision to recognize, because one of the things that imperfectionism gives us is it gives us more wiggle room. It gives us room to move. If we're trying to be perfect and do things in the perfect way, well, there's probably only one way then. We have to get it exactly right. When we recognize that whatever we do, whatever we choose, it's going to be imperfect, we can then recognize that more than one choice can be a good choice. And it might be really tempting to go like, but I want that as well. But it's like, it's not always possible to have that other thing as well. We do need to choose. Sometimes choosing one thing means not choosing something else. And to be okay with that. Go like, well, yeah, can't have everything. Let's choose the thing that we do want. The thing that is going to be a good choice. Not necessarily perfect, but then the other choice probably isn't going to be perfect either. Definitely isn't going to be perfect either. So that's a kind of choice that I'm facing right now. I haven't 100% decided yet. So this is something for, again, for those really keen viewers of the vlog. You know, sometimes I sort of somewhat jokingly at the end of the vlogs say, you know, let's see where I'm next. And normally I know where I'm going to be next. But this time, okay, I know I'm going to be in the US a little bit later on, but after the US, I don't know. And so that's going to be a reveal for all of us. Do I go to Central and South America, check out some places there, or do I go somewhere else and start, probably somewhere I've already been on this trip, and start that process of being settled somewhere so I can get on with work? We will find out. And I say we, not just you, me. We will find out soon enough, because that time is approaching. I'm going to need to make this decision. Okay, so finally, how does this apply directly to Qigong practice? Some of you have been very patient maybe to get to this point, or maybe some of you have just skipped ahead. You've gone to the Timecode and go like, skip that other stuff. I'm going to go right there. Again, embracing imperfection, being an imperfectionist, and recognizing that perfection is the enemy of progress, I think can be really valuable in our Qigong practice. You know, there are some people, so a classic example is people who feel like they're not coordinated enough to do Qigong. And so maybe they, because they see different Qigong movements and they go, oh, that looks graceful, and but I couldn't do that, I'm too uncoordinated. Well, the one good way to get more coordinated would be to start doing those practices, and they might not be so beautiful and graceful to begin with, but you know what, with a little bit of practice, and probably far less than you think, it would start to become graceful and coordinated. Also, just in terms of choosing what Qigong practices to do. Sometimes people get very caught up and they want to have the exact ideal practice for them to do, and what should I do for this and what should I do for that? And this is not to say that there can't sometimes be some practices that are more suitable for different situations than others. Of course there are. But for so many things, so many of the reasons why people practice Qigong, any well-balanced, gentle Qigong practice is going to be useful. And most Qigong practices are gentle and well-balanced. There are some that are much more specific, they're much more vigorous and so on, but most of them are gentle and well-balanced. And just going through that process of harmonizing your mind, your body, your breath, getting these working together is going to be hugely beneficial. And so pick whichever one you like. You know, it might be a Long White Cloud Qigong one, it might be one from a different school, a different teacher. Pick one you like, get into it, practice it, spend some time with it, and you're going to get so many benefits. You don't need to worry about so much about which one. Even in terms of addressing like specific health issues and things like that, often the simplest approach is best. And doing just a well-balanced practice is going to help balance everything, because often there's multiple things going on, and you know, without a lot of skill and experience, knowledge, it can be hard to pick, okay, what's going to be best for this? Do a well-balanced one, and you'll be able to take care in a gentle way of a whole lot of things that all contribute to bringing balance overall to you. Now again, this isn't to say that it's not worth getting that knowledge and experience, but that takes time. And that will come in time, but it won't come if you don't just get on with practicing and experiencing right now. That's what's going to lead to that over time, and then you'll be able to hone in more. That's just a natural process. Don't let thinking about the perfection stop you from progress right now. That's going to lead you closer and closer to a richer, more powerful, more fulfilling practice. Another thing that applies, I think, to this quite well is teaching Qigong. This is a classic one. There's lots of people who feel like, they couldn't possibly start teaching Qigong until, I don't know, I don't think they actually really have a clear idea of what it is they think they need, but it's kind of like, until they've spent at least a decade sitting on top of a misty mountain, meditating in a cave, or whatever it might be, that there's no way they could possibly teach or share Qigong with other people. And you know what, for some people with that mindset, even that wouldn't be enough. They'd spend a decade and then they'd go like, nope, I need 2 decades, or I need 3 decades. My beard is not long and white enough, So many people out there who haven't heard of Qigong, or may have heard about it, but need some encouragement. A big part of being a Qigong teacher, so there's the teaching part, conveying knowledge, right? And that's important, of course. But so much of, and for that, like if you're wanting to go deep into it, yes, you should go to someone who has a lot of knowledge and experience to help guide you well, absolutely. But for so many people, again, particularly when working with relatively gentle, balanced practices, there's not so far that you're going to go wrong with them. And what people really need often is actually to create an environment, create a space to encourage them, to find connection with other people, and to motivate them to make that practice a regular thing. And you don't need that much knowledge and experience to be able to facilitate that for people, to get them started on their Qigong path, their Qigong journey. You need enough of a base to understand what you're doing so you can lead them well, but you don't need to know everything. You just need to know enough. That's probably a good place to wrap all this up, I think. And I'll put in a plug right at the end. Since we finished on teaching Qigong, we do have a Qigong instructor certification course coming up. It's a 200-hour course. It's the Small Universe one, starting 20th of October. Great course. In the description below, again, we'll put a link to where you can find comments from people who've done that course in the past. And you can check those out, see what other people have thought, what they've learned, what they've experienced, how they've felt about whether they're ready to teach or not. at the end of that course, because we do go deep into the foundations of the practices so people can really understand what they're doing and also really develop their own practice over that time. So whether you want to teach or not, it's a great program. It gives you that foundation if you do want to teach, but also if it's just for your own knowledge, your own development of your own practice, you get all of the foundation in a really structured, useful way. So we'll put a link to that as well, we can find that. And if you're watching this after the 20th of October, we do run these periodically. So a good thing to do is to check the website once in a while or join the email list, because when we send it, we don't send out email newsletters all that often, but I try to send one once a month, and in there we'll just have any updates and any upcoming course dates and things like that. So you might want to go to probably we'll put a link to the main Long White Cloud Qigong website, and you can sign up to the newsletter there. And find out when the next courses are starting, things like that. All right, I hope you've enjoyed the vlog. Again, long, rambly one. I do know at least one person who uses these vlogs to help them to fall asleep at night when they can't sleep. Now, I could be insulted by that. I'm not, though. I think it's kind of funny. So, even if that's all the benefit you get from this vlog, that you can, because it's so long and rambly, it's a good one. If you want to use it to go to sleep, you can sort of just put it on in the background and just go like, oh, I don't know what he's talking about, but maybe it's useful and it might help you to go off to sleep. All right, I look forward to seeing you on another one soon.